Hello and welcome to Media Lit, where we treat each piece of media like great literature. I'm your host, Randy Elaine, and joining me as always, it's the one, the only, Kris Ingersoll, sporting yet another fantastic look. Your hair is on point tonight, sir, and it's great to see you.
Don't come at me with that sweetness. You're the one with the fresh haircut. Look at you looking sharp over there. Come on now. And I'm stoked to be here tonight, man. We've got a good one ahead.
Yeah, like with the conceit of our podcast, Kris, like we are often kind of a nostalgia podcast. We are recording this just after releasing our TGIF retro television draft, where we all went back to our childhoods, relived those older times. And we have watched some great films here. We had Bill George in last year. We went really deep on the movie Heat, which is maybe like our film buffiest episode so far up to this point. Would you say that's true?
That we've dropped, yes. Bill George came back for another film buffiest episode for us recently, but that'll come soon.
Such a tease. But tonight, it's one of those nights where I am just really excited to get to the introduction of our guests, because as I've gotten deeper and deeper into podcasting with my good friend Kris, and it's taken over my life more and more, I've found myself encountering more and more great podcasts out in the world. And sometimes I get really excited because I hear and see a podcast and I think, these are some kindred spirits. And it was like maybe 2 or 3 months ago. I can't even remember which social media outlet this gift was sent to me through. But this little ad for a podcast called Movies and Us popped up. And I heard the two hosts of this show describe their podcast. My jaw dropped to the floor because I was like, oh my God, this is a podcast about connecting with others through stories. And that's what we do here. That's what we love to do. It's about the emotion. It's about the journey. We can take a movie like 1997's Wild America and have one of the most emotional nights we've ever had on the show. And that movie features a bunch of goofy puppets. And yeah, lo and behold, not only do our guests tonight, Jennifer Hahn and Sarah Callen, not only do they have an incredible movie podcast, they have a TV podcast, and quite frankly, an entire little media outlet. They've got all sorts of fun segments and things that I'm going to dive into a little bit later on. But I think I've pumped up how excited I am to talk to these folks enough, Kris. Without further ado, Jen, Sarah, how are you doing tonight? And thank you so much for coming.
Hello. Thank you so much for having us. We're so happy to be here. Kindred spirits indeed. I think the heart of y'all's show is so great. Like every piece really deserves that same amount of attention. And it's about the emotions, about how we feel and connect to these pieces and these stories that we also are just as captivated by. And we've got quite a good one today. There's lots here for us to sink our teeth into. So it's going to be juicy. Yeah.
We're so excited to be here and just get to dive into this film, because it was a polarizing one when it came out, but there's just so much here to talk about. So this should be really fun.
Yeah. Well, on that note, without further ado, I know you all can see the title of the episode. You know what we're talking about tonight, but we like to bury the lead. Tonight we're talking about Tar from 2022, directed by Todd Field. Randy mentioned before that we've done a broad spectrum of properties on Media Lit up to this point. Sometimes we're talking about Saving Silverman, and sometimes we're talking about something like this, like pure cinema. I'm really excited for the conversation tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And after having buried the lead so much, Kris, let's get right into the synopsis, because then from there, we've got games ahead. We've got deep discussions ahead. We're even going to talk about just like podcasting and developing a creative partnership. All of that is on the table tonight. But first, let's get into Tar. Now, I tried to show some restraint, and I found it easier than usual with this movie. And the reason why I think the synopsis you're about to hear was easy to keep a little bit tighter than usual is that Tar is a film that leaves quite a bit up to your imagination and your interpretation in a really engaging way. So here you go, Randy's take in 3 paragraphs. Lydia Tár is a world-class conductor and the first woman to helm the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra. She is stylish, cultured, and knows exactly how to make New Yorker journalists swoon. She's also a monster who has shattered a whole lot more than glass ceilings. Viewers are introduced to Lydia as she stands at the precipice of yet another great accomplishment, completing the Mahler cycle with a special performance of Symphony No. 5. As the performance date nears, her predatory past comes back to haunt her, her present victims stand up to her, and her carefully curated future slips through her fingers. Reality itself is called into question, sucking viewers into Lydia's freefall. After losing her position, her foundation, her wife, and her daughter, Lydia no longer bends time to her will, but she appears to step confidently into one of the last gigs she can muster up, conducting a live video game score at a fan convention. Viewers are left to wonder if this moment signifies Lydia's final humiliation or the dawn of a new chapter in the life of a scrappy survivor. So there we go. Jen, Sarah, this is where we open things up to notes. Was there a key element that I did not include in the synopsis? Did I misrepresent something in some way? Or once in a while I get lucky and it turns into me fishing for compliments. So how'd we do tonight?
Well, first I have to say I went on like a whole emotional journey hearing you say that. Like that was, I was like, oh yeah. But one of the questions I'd have for you for later is your interpretation of the ending. And I feel like I got a little taste of maybe where you might have had some inklings around how to interpret that open-ended ending. So that was kind of fun to hear at the end there.
Absolutely.
Very still, yeah. Stay tuned to hear how we think about it.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I really appreciate your use of alliteration throughout that summary. Your predatory past and all of those little phrases that you included throughout. I thought that was a nice touch. It was kind of like rhythmic the way that you set that up. So that is my compliment that you didn't have to fish for.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
What did you say about her no longer bending time to her will? What was that?
Oh yeah,
I watched it send a ripple through the call. All of us were like, oh, my goodness.
She knows exactly when we're both going to arrive at our destination, Kris. She can control it all. If you listen to her mentor, you might be able to reach back through time to reinterpret the past.
I knew what you were saying. It was the way you said it in that moment. I wasn't prepared. It was wonderful.
I'm so glad I moved you, Kris. Did you catch the Christmas Carol shout out? You've got this little moment of Lydia sort of like meditating into a mirror, lighting a couple candles. Big Ebenezer Scrooge vibes. So I had to sneak in a little past, present, and future there. But listen, the first time I watched this movie, I got to the ending, which was the kind of ending that created buzz because I think many viewers, myself included, had no idea what they were watching. Clearly, Lydia Tár is in a new environment, a new setting, a new place. We're expecting, a lower scale orchestra. We can tell that we don't have all the trappings of Berlin in that entire scene. But then those screens drop, the video game pops on screen. And while I do have a past as a gamer, I'm pretty far past those years. So I had no idea what I was looking at. But it turns out, friend of the pod, Podling, and Kris's new friend, Nick, who just joined us for a Rilo Kiley concert, he was the first podling to reach out to me when we announced this episode. And he has not seen the movie, but he wanted to pick my brain about I've not seen the movie, but why is Monster Hunter World at the end of Tar? Which sent me down a rabbit hole. At the high school where I work, I run a science fiction club, which just so happened to meet this afternoon. And I asked one of my students, I was like, hey, have you played this game, Monster Hunter World? And I sat through approximately 30 straight minutes of a detailed explanation of the game and its monsters. And it sparked a whole mini game. So I've got a little challenge for all of you. And I'm not sure how this is going to go, but the good news is it's a cooperative game. So Kris, Jen, Sarah, you get to work together on this one. If I had to guess, I kind of have an inkling you might just ace my quiz, but even if you don't, we are going to unlock something thematic. Okay, so here's where we're going to go.
Wow.
I have pulled 5 quotes some of these quotes come from an IGN review of the video game Monster Hunter World. And some of these quotes come from reviews of the film Tar, actual live reviews. I have kept the quotes mostly intact, but if there's maybe like a reference to the video game title, maybe I've replaced it with Tar. Maybe I've replaced a name reference to a director, etc. Maybe I've changed a reference to a game, to a film. Maybe I haven't. But the trick is for each quote one at a time. Was this from a review of the video game Monster Hunter World, or was this from a review of Tar? Any questions about the rules here, people?
No, you
I'm
are
so
a
ready.
tricky fella.
Well done.
All right, so here we go. Prompt number 1. The sheer depth and commitment required is still intense, but it clearly isn't Field's aim to court a casual crowd. Feel free to talk this out amongst yourselves. It's a co-op game here.
What did he say about masking names? Because he said Field, right? So
Yeah, he did, which I was like,
Todd Field, yeah.
this could be a double bluff, though, you know?
Right?
be a
Like,
double.
Yeah.
is he going to start with one that's Tar, or is he going to trick us? Kris, you know Randy better than we do. So, like, do we think that he would start with something to trick us?
Yeah, I do think he's opening with a trick. It does sound like
Kris, maybe you don't know me as well as you thought, because you know exactly how I opened this. I used a random list generator to pick the order.
Oh, okay.
My favorite
That's
website.
helpful.
Come on, Kris.
Yeah, no, I should have guessed. I underestimated your willingness to go random. I mean, it sounds like it's describing her performance and what was required of her to go into this character. She's speaking different languages. For all those reasons, I think it's about Monster Hunter. I don't know. You guys please pick.
Oh, okay. My
Yeah,
answer
I thought you
Okay.
were leading up to a Tar answer, Kris.
Yeah.
I was, for all those reasons, because it feels so Tar.
Oh,
It's making me feel
I
like
see.
it's got to be Monster.
Oh, so
Yeah,
it's gotta be Monster Hunter.
my
Okay.
guess was the game as well, just because it seemed to be leading to Tar, but I don't know.
Jen, are you with your companions here?
I'm going to go Tar to keep it interesting. I love that
Okay.
we're like not trying to figure out the quote. We're like trying to figure out Randy
Yes.
and his psyche.
Don't
I
play the
mean-
game.
Yeah.
That's the secret
Play
to
the game
most
master, you know?
games. That's the secret to most games.
Yeah.
All right, listen. The majority rules in this one, and you got this first one correct. This was a review of the video game Monster Hunter World. I replaced a reference to the company Capcom with a reference to Todd Field. So you were right to be suspicious there. All right. Next quote. Tar is kind of a ghost story in which we're so deeply embedded in Tar's psyche that nearly everything that appears on screen is up for debate.
Once again, feels so Tar.
Yeah, I think this one is about Tar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree.
I'm also putting on my, like, he's a teacher and creates questions, and is he going to put two back-to-backs or switch it up from, like, a Tar one to a Monster Hunter and back and forth? Like, quiz design. But it feels Tar.
Once again, you are
Really good job.
correct. Nice job, crew. You successfully identified a Tar quote. All right, next quote. Even more interesting is when those food chains are messed with. Just as you've got a handle on every area's intricacies, Tar begins putting Lydia in unfamiliar situations.
Video game. This
Feels
is
Monster. Yeah, that feels like a Monster Hunter.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, so you are on to me. You're 3 for 3. Perhaps
Let's
you're about
go.
to go 5 for 5. But before I
Okay.
hit you with the last two questions, is anyone picking up on a thematic thread that I thought was valuable here, regardless of the outcome? Because if not, I'm more than happy to share my vision here.
I'm hearing themes of complexity and interpretation.
Mm-hmm. Ghost likeness was a thing. Seemed very prominent. Like the unknowability of a protagonist, perhaps.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking about the idea of being a predator, of surviving within your environment, perhaps latching onto those resources. The more I read about this game, the more, I was projecting some of that meaning onto the film itself. All right,
Mm.
fourth one. Think of this film instead as a journey through a haunted forest, like the ones the Grimms wrote about.
Feels like Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I wanna say this one is talking about a video game.
Okay.
Agreed.
Sarah. Okay.
All right. I finally got you. This was actually
Really?
from a review of Tar. Think of this film instead as a journey through a haunted forest like the ones the Grimms wrote about.
I read Grimm quite a bit, actually. My daughter's quite creepy. I would like to read this whole review and understand that better in the context of this person's perspective on the film.
If anyone wants to join
Fascinating.
Kris, this is a Slate review by Dan Kois from December 2022. So feel free to take a closer look there. All right, last challenge. You guys are going to beat me no matter what because you already got 3 out of 5. Here we go. Above and beyond anything else you can say about Tar, there is a lot of it.
That's a good
Is-
ending.
Shockingly, nearly a 3-hour endeavor, Tar
Yeah.
is. So that's fairly
That's
valid.
fair. But that could also be for the game.
It could be.
We've had 3 game. Oh, no, 2 for. We have 2 of each.
I don't think that's something you
See-
say about a movie. Unless you
Yeah.
didn't
A
like
lot
the
of
movie,
it.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's a critique that there's a lot of this film.
It was divisive.
Hmm.
I think it's Tar.
Yeah, and the last one was about Tar, right? We guessed that it was the game, but it was about Tar.
Yeah, I mean, I did put this through a random generator, but there have been 2 Tar and 2
exactly, I'm
Monster Hunter so
Mhm.
far. So
My thought is maybe he would end on a Tar one to
Well,
transition.
The order's random,
know.
though.
Mhm.
But he put
Oh,
all the
the order's
questions.
random.
Yeah,
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
I wish.
Logic says game.
Logic says game, but to your point, now he is a teacher. There is maybe some quiz structure here. It's an odd
Mhm.
number of questions. They're going to
Yeah.
be 3 of one and 2 of the other. Is it more likely
And
that
he
he
would
would do 3 of the
3
film
of-
we're talking about?
Probably.
I don't know. It was the game that led him to this game, right? It was going down this Monster Hunter rabbit
Mhm.
hole that led him to this idea. So it's
A lot of it.
It's just such a
seem
weird
like-
way to
it doesn't
end
seem
that
like-
phrase.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like film review critique language that,
I think my favorite thing about this is you're all starting to sound like Vizzini and Princess Bride.
Yes.
talking. Yes, that's what he wants me to think.
Mhm.
I think it's about. I don't know what I think it's about. I keep wanting to say that it's Tar, but it really feels like a
Yeah.
weird thing to put in a film review.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
feels very odd.
Do we want to say game? Do you want to?
Let's say game.
Okay.
Yeah, it's game. You got it.
Okay.
I feel a little bit bad for messing with
Really?
you, but maybe
Stressful.
that puts you in the experience of having to interact with Lydia Tár. She's both so skilled, but also so intimidating. You can see it in everyone's eyes. I pulled one more quote. This is from the game, but this was the thing that sent me down this rabbit hole when it was describing how you play this game. As you take on monster hunting quests, you harvest materials from your prey and the environments they live in, use them to build stronger gear, and then use them to take on stronger monsters. And I was just thinking about the way she rises up from what appear to be humble beginnings into this position, and then she starts clawing her way back up all over again. And I just had fun going down a whole new rabbit hole with this video game. So shout out to my student. And shout out to Nick. Thank you so much for getting me to spend a little more time with this. Kris, we heard from one other podling.
Did we now? Who'd we hear from?
This is our buddy Madison, who you may know from our X-Files episode, and more recently from our Rilo Kiley More Adventurous episode, the most listened to episode of Media Lit thus far. Now, we have not had Madison on to talk film, but out of all the people I know, she is the person who spends the most time keeping up with all of the capital F films and all of the capital C cinema. The one with the up-to-date Letterboxd. I think I've only reviewed 5 things on it ever. So I asked for her thoughts on Tar. So I thought I'd share this. She says, it's one of my 5 stars on Letterboxd. And my review is, I support women's wrongs, but I think it's an all-timer performance from Cate Blanchett and such an elegant way of making a film about the corruption of sexual power without it being a finger-waggy morality tale. What does it mean to be canceled when your anti-heroine at the end is still performing for crowds of people thrilled to be there, when her Mahler crowds didn't really give a shit? The construction of pretension, the self-obsessed American dream of making yourself who you want to be in Europe. And she adds, I am Petra's father is a banger of a line.
Honestly, though, it really is.
Dude, Madison, that is chef's kiss.
That's great. So good.
Yeah.
She is the best of the best out there.
Fantastic. Thank you,
All right.
Madison.
All right, Kris, now that I'm done goofing around, maybe you can actually get us back on track.
Yeah, I mean, it's time for us to transition into personal connections. This is the kind of bread and butter of the Media Lit brand here. I'm excited to get into why this film means something to you both, why you picked it to talk about tonight. But first, we got to get to know you all a little bit. So we talked before the pod. You told us, but for the podlings at home, can you tell us a little bit about how you both started podcasting together?
Yeah, so Sarah and I met many, many years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago now, back when we were both living in the same city in Texas. We were both volunteering at this nonprofit together, and we had one of our annual retreats, and we kind of like known of each other, crossed paths a little bit. But it was the last day, we were cleaning up, and to the whirring of air leaving air mattresses, we just started chatting like, hi, how are you? You're a whole human. What are you all about? And somehow got on the topics of like, I think it started from books, right? And then we trickled our way over into movies and TV shows, and we just yapped for so long. After that, we did a bunch of movie nights together, and we would also see movies separately and voice memo each other, like 10-15 minute long, like, these are all my thoughts about this thing I just watched. It was really deranged. It was quite insane. So we thought, what might it look like for us to hit record and just have this space where people can come and share their thoughts about movies and really go deep in them. It's funny now watching movies with people and seeing that like they're like, that was good. And it was like, no, but tell me all of your thoughts though. And so just creating that place of safety for people to dig a little deeper, really like wrestle with some of those some feelings and emotions that came up, characters they loved or hated and why. Is kind of our heart for our podcast. Sarah, anything to add around our origin story?
Yeah, I think the other part is, neither of us went to film school. We're not experts, none of that. We're just two people who like watching movies. And so creating this space where you don't have to be in the know. You are a person who watches movies, and you are welcome in this space and welcome to have these conversations, because what you take from it or what you receive from the movie is valid, and we want to talk about it. So just creating, like Jen said, that safe space where we can have these conversations, and it doesn't have to be, super highbrow or anything, but just come as you are and let's chat about a movie.
So beautiful. I like the way you describe your approach to film discussions. My wife loves to say, like, let's skip the small talk. Tell me about your trauma. Like, let's get to really know each other. And that's how we should talk about films. I love that.
I think that's perfect. And from what I've observed, you are both really hitting that mission statement perfectly. I know you say you're not trained, but you've got brilliant insights into the films. And in addition to your own chats, like, you're always inviting new people into your family. Whenever I catch an episode of your show, like, your guests are phenomenal. Like, you're smart, they're smart. You bring out the best in one another. You celebrate one another. It's great to watch. Kris, partly thanks to the recent 7-year birthday episode of Movies and Us, and also partly because we got to go experience some live music together, I started working on your mix for our season 2 finale for our mixed CD exchange. So that is now in the works. But enough about us. Jen and Sarah, you just celebrated 7 years, and you've been expanding your podcast operation quite a bit this year. So how has what started as these great conversations between two new friends grown into really a whole network?
Yeah. A couple of years ago. So our podcast was initially called The Strategic Whimsy Experiment, which was totally fitting for the time. Jen and I are both very strategic people, and we like to plan and all of this stuff. And so we just wanted a place to be able to just do something fun and whimsical and not have to plan and be strategic. But after doing that for a few years, we were like, well, this name doesn't really describe what we're doing. The name has nothing to do with movies. So we should probably change this. And so then a few years ago, we rebranded to Movies and Us. And at the same time, because why not? We decided that we also wanted to start a second podcast, because I like to say that podcasting is kind of like eating a bag of potato chips. You can't stop. You just have to.
Yes.
And so
that's
that's basically what we did. So we started a second podcast called TV and Us, and so now we have 2 shows, and both are Movies and Us is about movies, and TV and Us is about TV, and it's just so fun to be able to explore these 2 different mediums, week after week together.
So
was it you, Randy, earlier that said that the podcast just kind of takes over your life? You're like, oh my God, all of a sudden, so many hours of my time excitedly get to go to this thing.
It's like you're editing fun. And you're trying as hard as you can to listen to all of your friends' podcasts. And I still try to listen back to our own podcast episodes when I can. But yeah, that's my biggest disappointment. It's kind of like that Twilight Zone episode where the guy finally has enough time to read all the books. That's how I feel about all the podcasts now.
Yeah.
Yes.
When I get asked what superpower I would want to have, I always say, ideally, just can we have Narnia where time stops and you can go to Narnia and then when you come back, you pick up again. And so we can go to Narnia, watch all of our movies, listen to a podcast, read all the books, come back and pick up where you left off.
This is
perfect.
Whenever any of us figures this out, please share and let us all know so we can come.
Magical pocket dimension, more effective than the time turner. I was thinking Hermione's time turner would be handy in this instance, but I like that. And I love the bag of chips analogy. That is so spot on. That's why we have a million sub brands of Media Lit now. I guess we're going to get into your connections with the film itself, but before that, do you want to take this moment to plug your socials and any upcoming projects aside from the pod or special to the pod before we move on?
Yeah, so you can find us on kind of podcasting platforms, Movies and Us or TV and Us. And we're on the socials at Movies and Us Pod and then at TV and Us Pod. And then I guess exciting things as of late, we recently just launched kind of a subscription-based platform for people that want to just support the podcasting journey and come and get some bonus content and kind of interact a little bit more. So that's called And Us Living Room. So that was a recent thing as of a couple of weeks ago. So that's the latest new thing. But yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I love that branding. Kris, maybe someday we can start the Media Lit classroom.
Yes.
I do think we left that out of the story off air. That was the nickname for the media literacy course I used to teach. That's also part of the inspiration for the podcast. So there you go. The living room, the classroom. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. Spaces.
Let's see. Now, you mentioned the strategic whimsy experiment earlier. I like to do my homework, and I went back to hear your thoughts on Tár from when it first dropped on the first iteration of your podcast. It was excellent, by the way. But I was just curious if you could tell us a little bit about your first experience with Tár. And has it impacted you in any way, whether it's in your podcasting life, in your personal life, heck, maybe just your style? I mean, Lydia Tár can wear a suit. How's this film impacted you?
Yeah, so gosh, you probably know what our takes were from that episode better than we do now. I don't even remember what we said. I do remember so distinctly, though. We got to the end of that episode and we were like, oh my gosh, we've only talked about 5% of our notes.
Yeah.
Shoot, it's been an hour.
That might be a direct quote.
Probably. Just this frantic, oh no. We've also, since reviewing this back in 2022, have always kind of had it in the back of our minds to do a rewatch, revisit episode on. So honestly, this is the best excuse ever for us to be able to talk about that, not just with ourselves now, but with you both. So this is really fun. I remember being captivated by how rich and dense this text was. I think it might have been like a time of year or a time in movies where it felt like there were just all the big blockbuster IPs that are coming out, and even kind of indie films were just like experimental. But I remember feeling like this was a buffet, and I couldn't have enough time and space and bound by linear time for all the things that you could think about. And how Tar is able to give you so many themes, and you can kind of, it's a choose your own adventure. You know, you can think about the role of high art versus like highbrow versus lowbrow and what that even means, and its commentary on that. You can think about it from the dimension of music and classical music and emotion. There's also obviously this whole arc around a person with great ambition that falls from their tower and kind of fall from grace. So I just remember feeling excited by how rich this text was at the time, and feeling that you could just feast on all of it. So that gave me like restored hope for great movies that could be so dense and so full and satisfying at the time.
Beautiful.
How about you, Sarah?
Yeah, when we were trying to decide, like of all the movies that exist in the world, what do we want to bring to this episode?
Yeah.
Honestly, it just kind of came down to wanting to almost like evangelize Tar, like we obviously watched it when it came out. We reviewed it. We loved it. But a lot of people haven't. And I feel like this film has kind of flown under the radar. So to be able to like bring this to a new audience, to be able to unpack it with you guys was just really, really exciting. And then like just more personally, I grew up like playing music. I was in band, I was in choir, I was in musical theater, like did all of those things throughout like school and stuff. But now as an adult, like that's not a big part of my life anymore. And I'm a little sad about that. I'm not going to lie. And so like watching a film like Tar just like reignites that for me, and just that love of music, like missing playing in a band with everybody, the camaraderie and just the magic that can come from an experience like that. And the fact that a movie like Tar is able to capture that like visceral experience of being just submerged in the music is just so special. So there's a lot of like deep themes in this film, and Tar is a very just problematic protagonist, but I love the beauty in this film, and I love the way that it handles the music. And I remember in the theater being so taken by the sound mixing and the sound editing and the way that you just felt just surrounded by the sound. And it was such a cool experience. So it's fun to revisit this again and just, I don't know, fall in love with this movie all over again.
I love that. The music connection must have made this such a rich text for you. That's cool. Well, that kind of brings me to my next question. I'm curious, after that first viewing and you podcasted about it, did you each lay this film to rest until this rewatch, or have you watched it in between?
No,
I have not watched it in between.
Yeah. Yep. Both of us have been like meaning to, and like Jen said, we've talked about it and been like, oh my gosh, we need to review this again. But we haven't, because there's so many other movies to review. So it's cool to see it again after a few years.
I'm just glad you've got a second chance now, and maybe like 7 times podcasting about it from now, we'll have covered everything.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Wonderful. Well, I guess that we're ready to move on to this film as literature. Give it the full media lit treatment. You guys ready to jump in?
Let's do it.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Always.
Fantastic. Okay, well, let's just get right to the heart of it then. Cate Blanchett is an absolute force in this movie. So I'm curious to hear from the group. We'll go to everybody on this. What was your relationship with Cate Blanchett before Tar? How did this film impact your understanding of her as a performer? What do you have to say about how compelling she is in this and how she does that magic? Sarah, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think I probably first saw Cate Blanchett as Galadriel in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Iconic, so good. And she is just phenomenal as Tar in this. Like, and you see this, I think, in every Cate Blanchett performance. She just has a presence on the screen. Like, no matter what role she's playing, if she is in the frame, you are going to find her because she
Mm.
just has that thing. She just has that presence.
Yeah.
And you see that. I love that you framed it as she is a force in this movie. Like she really is. And you feel her presence throughout. Even if, we don't see her in a scene or she's like off in a corner or something, like you feel her in this. And I think that that's just such a unique thing that Cate Blanchett is able to do that not every actor is able to do. And so you really see that on display in this film.
Yeah, well said. Jennifer, what about you?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Cate Blanchett. I think she is one of the greatest actresses of our time, honestly. I just love seeing her in everything. The film that I remember being so taken with her in is her role in Carol. And I think that role is interesting to put in conversation with this one because she captures this powerful presence and this authority, and yet there's vulnerability baked into there somehow in some way, which I think makes it a little bit more complex. I'm just thinking about other types of performances in this role, and they could have leaned really heavily into the kind of power trip and the manipulation, which is very much in there. But there's a vulnerability in the way she plays Tar that I think is essential for seeing that all unravel so that by the time we get to the end of the film, spoiler alert, and she is in that moment back in her childhood home and she's crying and stuff, we believe that that person has been there the entire time. And she's just built up all these sparkly things around her, but she's still that person. She's still that person that fell in love with music and whatnot. The other thing that I think is important about Cate Blanchett, especially in the ending framing the rest of the film, is in that same scene where she's crying, watching Bernstein and playing those old tapes. She's still an enigma to us. There's so many mixed emotions, and we can't really fully read whether that's true remorse and regret or she's just weeping over the fact that she's lost her place at the top of the mountain. And I think that's really a very delicate balance to strike in the performance, to have that still be kind of a question mark to us. And so I think that's also essential to this movie working as well as it does.
Love that. Randy, anything to add?
Yeah, and I'm gonna yes and I was not cultured enough when it came to Cate Blanchett because I think really going into this movie, it was Galadriel, it was Hela and Ragnarok. She can embody these larger than life figures. It was The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, she's, and I love Wes Anderson, but to throw her in that sort of often emotionless or intentionally emotionally flattened out world, I don't think it does full justice to what Cate Blanchett is capable of. So this was a revelation to me. It actually reminded me a little bit of, I've loved Harrison Ford forever, playing action heroes, quippy, lovable people. But then to see him more recently in Shrinking, playing this really different sort of vulnerable human character and feeling like maybe it's the best thing I've ever seen him do. That's kind of where I landed with Tar. I was like, man, I've been missing out on the full catalog. But yeah, yes, and Jen was talking about how she can inhabit all of these different spaces and make it look effortless. And it's kind of weird to say this when I'm talking about why Cate Blanchett is a force, but that energy she brings, you can see it in the reactions of the people around her. That poor Juilliard student with that leg that can't stop tapping. I wanted to hold it down. I wanted to give him a hug. I just felt so badly for this guy. All the little looks and expressions, whether it's from Sharon or Olga. And even when Lydia's being egregious in her manipulations and everyone's seeing right through it, she's not seeing it. She believes everyone's along for the ride. And you can see them trying to bolster themselves to be able to stand up to this force. So yeah, just incredible, incredible stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yes and. I think that there's something really tangible about that force in the performance. So you can see it's not just the character having that impact on the other characters, but it's the performer having that impact on the other performers, right? Something you said about that bit, Jen, where she's watching the film and you're not so sure what she's really feeling there. And I think what's so beautiful in her performance is the truth that it's probably all of that, a little bit of everything. We as humans are rarely in touch with the truth of our own motivations. right? What's really driving our choices and our actions. We think we're one thing, and often we're another, even to ourselves. And she has that in this performance really incredibly. And it's so quiet. It's not that she says a lot to tell us about how she's feeling or thinking. She's incredibly expressive while still remaining incredibly still. There's just so much of the craft on display in this film. For me, she's also Galadriel, right? That just she is Galadriel. And then it's funny, my daughter, the first time she saw the live action Beauty and the Beast film, she started asking for it after that. She would ask for Beauty and the Beast, and we'd ask which one, and she'd say Hermione as Belle.
That's so funny.
Emma Watson is Hermione for her, and then any other role she's in, she's Hermione as that character, and that's Cate Blanchett for me to some extent.
Yeah.
But my gosh, she really lost herself in this role. And when I said the craft was on display, I mean, I don't know how much German she spoke before this role, but I'm convinced she's been speaking German her whole life. Right? I don't know how much music she's been exposed to before this role, but I'm convinced that she's as talented as she appears on screen. You know, it looks like she has dedicated so much time and energy into becoming this character, right? That despite looming so large in my mind as Galadriel, she was very much Tar in this film.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I paused this and sent you a message, Kris, because the second we see her in the wings before that interview, going through her breathing routine / nervous tics, I was transported there. I was like, oh, we just hit the gas pedal and we are never going back. And we did not.
We did not.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love that moment, you know, when she's in the wings, because I mean, she obviously looks like Cate Blanchett. You know, they didn't do any sort of like prosthetics or like makeup trickery to make her look different. And yet, when she is there in the wings, she doesn't look like Cate Blanchett. She looks like someone else. And that's purely just her acting and the energy that she brings. And the way that you were saying, Kris, she transforms into this character. And I remember like sitting in the theater being like, what? Like, this is obviously Cate Blanchett, and I know what she looks like, but wow, she is not her. This is somebody else. And being so just struck by the fact that she was able to do that solely on her performance and not any sort of other aids to help her transform into Tar.
Yeah. Not Colin Farrell and the Penguin.
No.
Yeah. Although she does give me Oz Cobb when she goes back home.
Oh, wow. Shout out to Mama Cobb.
So we know Cate Blanchett is a force. I'm sure we're not even done talking about that for the night. But I also want to know, who gives your favorite performance after that one? Like, obviously, this is a Cate Blanchett showcase, but she needs people to play off of. So Jen, let's see, Jen, we'll give you the first shot this time. Who's your next favorite performance?
My runner-up is, I just love seeing Mark Strong in anything, honestly. And this is like such a Mark Strong performance, just, you know. So I loved that. Just made me happy. My actual pick is in this watch. It wasn't in my first watch. I didn't really notice this character as much as I did this time around, but it's Sophie Kauer who plays Olga. And I think she is really fascinating because in the first watch, I thought she was just kind of the object of Lydia's desire. But now that I got to watch it again, I can see the way that in these small, subtle ways, Olga is also playing into what's favorable for her agenda. And it's in the small glances, the small sparkles in her eye. And I thought she just did such a great job of making that so coy, but also intentional, and allowing Lydia to essentially feed off of the right amount of attention, but not too much that she would show all of her cards. And so I think that performance is such a counteraxis to Lydia, who is this larger than life force, but this small character is the thing that tips the whole thing and flips it on its head. So I think she gives a really great performance and still like embodying that like innocence and youthfulness and naive nature, and yet there's something more behind it where I'm like, oh, okay, I see you. Also playing the game as she needs to play the game, to use your video game reference.
Totally.
Get what she needs to get, you know? Yeah.
Does anyone want to sneak in any Sophie Kauer yes ands? That was such a great breakdown.
Honestly, yes. Sophie was going to be my answer. In fact, Jen, you took both my answers. I was going to shout out Mark Strong because I love the stringy hair. It's horrifying, and he's really great in the role. But it was it was the scene when she first sits down to lunch with Olga that did it for me. That I'm like, who is this performer? What's this character going to mean for this film? You could feel that things are getting ready to kind of topple. We must be heading for some sort of third act move. The way she eats, like eating is such a fun thing for a performer to do. And not everybody's able to do it well while remaining compelling, without losing themselves in the meal, without it becoming distracting. And she balances it perfectly, even as she becomes sort of voracious and Lydia is sort of taken with the appetite of this woman. You can see how intrigued she is in the way Olga is consuming this meal, and she's a little bit unapologetic about who she is. And Lydia finds herself somewhat on the back foot because of that behavior, I think. She's not used to somebody being sort of this confident in her presence, right? Intrigued by her and clearly has reverence for her, but something about her was like you said, Jen, kind of drawing Tár in. And I think that's all in the performance. The writing can tell you to do that. But I was convinced that this small person, as you said, I love that, could be moving this larger than life person in that way.
All right, Sarah, I'm going to go to you next. Who is your number 2 performance in this film?
I appreciate that so far. We've all brought 2 people to this question because I also wrote down 2 people. So my shout out is to, I'm going to butcher this name, so I'm sorry in advance, but Zephan D. Smith Neist as Max. You referenced it earlier, Randy. That knee shaking, that entire scene, I'm still stressed out about it, and I watched this movie like hours ago. Like, I'm still anxious because of his knee shaking. And so just everything he brought to that, like 10-minute scene that he's in is still so memorable. So just shout out to him for doing a great job. But my actual submission to this question is Noémie Merlant as Francesca. She is so good. She's just a fantastic actress in whatever she's in. But I love how subtle she is in this. And, she doesn't have a lot of lines. A lot of times she's just sitting in the background somewhere, or she's just responding to an instruction from Tár. But there's so much emotion on her face and in her body, too, in the way that she is responding to Lydia. And so I love that she is able to say so much without having a lot of dialogue. And I mean, obviously, the way that the screenplay unfolds, she has a very outsized impact on where this goes. And it's all set up in her performance. Like, we know how she like bristles at Lydia. So then when the film goes to where it goes, it makes sense. You feel the justification for her actions in the end. Like, it all makes sense because we've seen how Lydia has treated her and her response to Lydia. So just shout out to her. Fantastic performance.
Shout out to you for bravely attempting both of those names. There was no way I was going to attempt Francesca's.
I'm so bad at names. It's rough. So we're just barreling through.
If you say it with confidence, it's a little better.
Yeah, braver than I.
Yeah, and like
With the
even
disclaimer.
yeah, and Francesca is such an effective character that she even works as an absent character, because the first time through, you're assuming she's going to pop up again at the deposition or something. We're going to get like another moment, but she's just gone. Like, that chapter is closed for Lydia, and presumably, Francesca is informant number 1. But I think like the best foreshadowing we get of that is right at the beginning when she is melding along to the introduction at the New Yorker interview. There's something that it feels sarcastic. It feels nasty. Like, maybe it's set up by the texts that presumably are coming from Francesca in that opening scene. I know it's certainly up for debate. But yeah, I love how much is up for debate. Like, it's an easy read to like say that she has had a romantic entanglement with Tár, but you could also make an argument that they never did. Like, it's just been this sort of, I'm waiting my turn appropriately and I'll get my shot sort of thing. But even if they were never romantically entangled, I'm sure she has been very complicit. It seems like she's got a lot of guilt about this suicide because she saw what was happening and she let it happen and she's ready to do something about it. But yeah, so to get that across in such little time. So yeah, I love all your choices. But I want to shout out Nina Haas as Sharon. We get we get like these multi-generations of people who have suffered at the hands of Lydia. And Sharon loves her, but they had that sort of relationship. Once upon a time, they were scheming together. They were planning together. And Sharon's been ready to settle into a stable life, and she can't get that. There's even that great moment where she's saying, you know, after, Lydia takes off with Olga to New York City, she finds out about it later on. She's like, it's not even that. Like, I've learned to accept certain things about you. I could get past it if it was just that, but it's that you didn't consult me. And her looks are incredible. Like when everyone's turning to her with the what the fuck faces, when Lydia is pulling bullshit in front of the entire orchestra, she is selling it. And on my second viewing, although they do have that big fight before Lydia moves out, I feel like the end of the relationship is when they are in the car. Lydia is freaking out, just talking shit about Francesca. And she's like, slow down or let me out of the car. And with like zero hesitation, Lydia's like pulls over. And this like little indignant look, like, I can't believe that you made that choice and made it so quickly. I think she was pretty much done there. Like,
I think she was saying like, slow down or let me out of this relationship, right? Like slow down or I'm done. This
and Mila Bogojevic nails it as Petra. So shout out to Petra.
We need to go rescue Petra, really.
Honestly, though.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I still can't get past some of these performances. What a film. But this film also makes us think of other films, as all films do. So we got to do a little bit of pop culture referencing here. I'm curious to hear what was top of mind for each of you as you were watching Tar, either the first time or this second time around. Jen, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, I would say this film is definitely not pop culture, but it's a great film, and it has Cate Blanchett in it. It also has Bradley Cooper. It's Nightmare Alley. I don't know if you guys seen this film yet, but it's directed by Guillermo del Toro, and it's a very similar theme around someone kind of being intoxicated by their own mythology and ultimately having that bubble burst for them. Cate Blanchett gives a very different but it's similar in nature type of performance. So I don't know why that film was like always in my mind, but that rise and fall of that protagonist is so similar to this one. And then it just made me think about how, honestly, I think a lot of stories, we just in human history are captivated by this idea of like human hubris becoming too big. So I was thinking, oh, this is like an incredibly Shakespearean story. It's very much in line with Greek mythology too. So this is a tale as old as time, honestly. And somehow I think it's like oddly satisfying for us as humans to watch another human kind of, like go off the rails because their pride just was too big for themselves, and kind of this weird sense of justice we feel that like, you know what? Yeah, that's what happens when you feel too great about yourself, So I think there's something that's kind of universal and timeless about this type of story.
Yeah, no, Nightmare Alley is a good choice because the central protagonist in that, like, his downfall is really that he believed his own mythology. And I mean, that's kind of what happens to Tar too, is she built up all these lies about herself, and she believed that she was invincible, and she wasn't. So yeah, I think that's a great choice.
The name of her book is Tar on Tar.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
like, here's me talking about the entity that is me, right? This kind of thing that exists separate from myself. So Sarah, what about you? Please go on. Any other pop culture that was top of mind for you?
Yeah, one that I thought of was, it's not pop culture either, but it's a really great movie. There's a reason why Jen and I host podcasts together, because we sometimes think similarly.
Yeah.
But the other movie that I was thinking about was Phantom Thread, which is just a beautiful film. But the central relationships in that are very, very problematic and abusive and manipulative and really, really not great. But the film itself is gorgeous. And so I loved this balance, and you get that in Tar too, of like beauty and horror kind of existing at the same time. and you're seeing the way that this brilliant protagonist is treating everyone around them terribly while also producing these brilliant works of art at the same time. And so these two movies share that in common.
Great pull.
Neither of us picked anything from pop culture.
No.
This is like the most non-culture pop culture picks ever.
No, you got film, you got pop culture, and,
Okay,
and
there we go.
literature is on the table as well.
Okay.
And
Yeah, always.
that's where I'm
Perfect.
going. Kris, we're going to have to institute like a 10-second Gatsby timer for me. I try not to do it, but like she's trying to control time. She goes back to her humble roots. We learn that her name is not Lydia Tár. It is Linda Tár, Tarr.
Yeah.
From her wall. She feels shame about this past and has tried to bury it as much as possible. And her attempts to control time fail. So there you go. But more
Nice.
importantly, I've got to shout out yet another podling. So many podling shout outs today, but Tim Freitas, when he came on the pod, we had not really seen each other for like 14 years. And I vaguely remembered, I'm pretty sure Tim loves the poem The Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. I read a line from it, and he dove in with no warning and recited the full poem from memory.
It's one of the most magical moments of my podcasting life.
Yeah. And I
couldn't believe what I was beholding.
And I've got one stanza written right here that I did not memorize. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. We get this Jabberwocky reference, and I can't get over how many layers this works on. Like, there's the Francesca layer, right? Like, she's using this term, which was a nonsense word coined for this poem, which has existed enough to make it into the lexicon, right? Tar is using it to kind of call Francesca like clumsy, like, yeah, she's going to come clumsily clamoring back to me, begging for more. But the people who wrote this movie, like dropping lines of Emily Dickinson, yada, 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 they knew what they were doing, right? And yeah, Francesca's gone with Tar's head, you could argue. And I will not go deeper on my treatise on Monster Hunter Worlds, but the Jabberwock is a monster. So I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Perfect.
And if I were just going to complete a little film festival with Jen and Sarah's shout outs, I was thinking of my guy Barton Fink.
Love it.
He believes he's written the play to represent the common man, but that ego that you both mentioned is there. He can't listen to the John Goodman character who's trying to tell him stories. And he ends up lost on a beach with a human head in a box, probably. So there you go. Lydia, I'll show you the life of the mind, Tar.
Love that.
Kris, how about for you?
Done.
For me, I think so. First and foremost, we just recently, I mentioned earlier in the podcast, we did a little Nolan coverage and we got to revisit Memento. And this film doesn't necessarily have like a messy chronological structure, but it feels like it does because there's so much left unsaid, as you mentioned earlier, Randy, because it is so vague. We're kind of constantly going media res into these little moments in the life. Even as we are moving chronologically through time, it feels a bit like a mystery box in the same way Memento does. And I had that same sense of uneasiness, the same sense that I couldn't really be sure of what I was seeing in the context of the narrative. I couldn't quite take what I was seeing at face value. So all that felt very familiar, especially the way the film opens. It opens with that vague cell phone exchange, right? It's like a live stream, but it's a texting conversation. I'm not sure what we're supposed to understand is happening there, but there's a video being shared and you don't know by whom and you don't know exactly, we're just like right in it, right? And so Memento was very, very top of mind for me. And then also, strangely enough, Randy, another film we talked about recently, not at all akin to this film, but we watched Glass Onion just a little bit ago, so we can talk about the sequel to Knives Out, and that very of the moment pandemic film of it all was here, and I don't know how much I've consumed of like stuff that was made and released right around or post pandemic, so that moment in our shared history lives so large in the film. But this was a rare one for me. I think that really Glass Onion and this are the two that come most immediately to mind. I'll be so curious what it's like to watch these films if you have no context for what they're referring to, right? There's a point where Tar greets her musical family, and it's like, we're finally back together.
Yeah.
And there's all this sort of subtext that is directly related to the pandemic and emerging on the other side of it that's in this film. Just made me think of Knives Out in that way.
Yeah.
And then lastly, again, a totally unrelated film, but a reason to shout out A Serious Man by the Coen brothers. You've seen this
Coen's
film?
making their second appearance in the section. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a throwback to like 2009, right? So it's not a new film. So it doesn't quite fit into what you were describing earlier about how this film gave you hope for films. I forget Sarah or Jen who said that, but this just felt like, hey, we're not doing this a lot anymore, right? And it's just nice to watch a film that somebody made for the sake of their artistic vision. And maybe that means something to you. Maybe you take something from it, or maybe you're entertained by it, and maybe not, but they're an artist who had to make a thing. And I just watched A Serious Man 2 weeks ago for the first time. And so it was very top of mind as I was watching this. I'm like, oh, here we go again. I finally, it's a film, something that just feels like, I don't know. I don't know why this person felt the need to make it, but I would love to talk to the creator and hear their why.
You discover something really great when you want to know. It feels like there's an urgency for that to be birthed in some way. Like they had something to say and it had to come forth, and you want to know what the origin and backstory were for, like, why this story? Why now? Why did you include that in? So, yeah.
Exactly right.
Sounds like you had that feeling with Serious Man too.
Yeah, this is all totally perfect. So I think we've kind of danced around this topic a little bit. But this film, Tar, it's open to interpretation. It also subverts a lot of our expectations. Like I cited earlier, I just kind of silently assumed we'd see Francesca again. We never see her again. So I was just curious about the structure of this film. Were there any other things that this film did to subvert your expectations, or are there any other really intentional and unique structural elements? Like, Sarah, I believe I'm stealing this from you on the strategic whimsy experiment. You were kind of shouting out in those closing moments when you were bemoaning not having more time. Like, is there something to say about this film being structured like a piece of music? So if anyone has thoughts there, feel free to jump in there. Sarah, I'm gonna throw it right to you. How are you feeling about this one?
Yeah, I don't remember saying that in our episode, so that's
really good though.
It is interesting. But actually, like what I remembered of my first experience watching this was actually like the opening of the film, and the fact that it's just you're just hearing the music and you see the credits rolling. And I remember sitting in the theater and like hearing like laughter in the theater as we're like, what is this? What is going on? And the way that the film starts in such a almost like an off-putting place. And you're like, I don't have a context for what we're about to go through. And I just I love that this film almost puts you on the back foot as you then go on this journey. And I think that opening is so smart and so intentional to also get you like tuned into the film. We don't start with a big action moment or a big dramatic moment, but we start with just listening to this music and letting the music speak. And I think that also touches on that little clip that we get from Leonard Bernstein when she's watching the VHS tape of what music can do in creating that emotion and telling the stories that we don't have words for. And I love that the film plops us in that. And it's like, you're going to experience this piece of music and then we're going to go on a journey. So just buckle up, get ready. We're going somewhere. So it's such a bold way to start the film, but I think it's really effective in setting it up where we're going for the rest of the, 2.5+ hours.
Perfect stuff. Kris, what do you have to add?
I love that bit about this being like a piece of music, but I would say the film sort of subverts some of what Tar says about music in that it's like this flow and it's a constant question and answer, and then another question and an answer. And it's like this response in this conversation. And I think this film wants to ask more questions than it wants to answer. Like, I feel like if I was listening to this as a piece of music, I'd be constantly waiting for it to resolve. like waiting. You ever like listen to music and you know what should come next because your ear you can feel it, right? If it's well composed. This film never quite does that for you. It never quite resolves the musical phrase in a satisfying way, which in itself is really satisfying as an experience, right? So yeah, that for me is a fun way to think about the film. Then there was this other element that felt so. You described not knowing what we were in for in the theater as this began to roll, and I like felt the need to check what IMDb had to say about the genre of this film as it unfolded. Because like, how much of a sort of mystery thriller am I sitting down for right now? Is she sort of having these moments with the maze in the book? There's like, I don't know if that was real or not. I don't know if the metronome and I don't know how much of that was really happening, how much of that was an experience. I think that she seems to be abusing her wife's medication. And so like her grip of reality maybe isn't all there. And I do think this film puts us very squarely in her experience of her life. And so I love the way they use that recurring theme of those weird symbols, those mazes, and this seeming mystery happening in her life that she's in touch with, but she's not sharing with anybody. So you really can't be sure how tangible that is. It made the whole film watching experience very uneasy. I was off balance the whole time. And then when it finally shifted to that, I think I messaged you, Randy, to say, why am I in a horror film sequence all of a sudden? Where she's like followed Olga to give her the teddy bear. That whole sequence I was like, what? I'm 2/3 of the way through this movie and I still don't know what I'm watching in a really, really good way. I mean, again, it's an experience of a film.
Yeah, one of the reviews I read, was actually arguing that they were like pretty much entirely convinced that everything from that moment she descends the staircase forward is like some kind of a dream, a fantasy, an alternate reality. I don't think I 100% agree with that read, but like there's a clear break from whatever stable reality we had. And I thought that was a fun read of it. That's where a lot of that ghost story stuff comes into play.
Yeah, like when Mark Strong says to her, you're confused, even as she's attacking him. I was curious how much of that was gaslighting, how much of that was like, oh, how confused is she? You know, how much of this is all in her mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Jen, what were some of the narrative structural elements that stood out to you?
Yeah, there were two that I found really interesting and fun. The first one is also in the opening, but it's that long interview that we get with her. I don't know about y'all, but I remember the first time watching this movie, and even the second time, I'm like, this scene is really long. I keep waiting for them to cut away from it, but it's like a whole chunk of time. And I think it's essential because it establishes her at the height of her glory. And I think it also is like honing in for us as the viewers of like this awe and this pedestal that she is on, and almost orienting our relationship to her to view it that way. And I think that's essential to ground the film and how long that is, because she obviously topples and falls from her statue moment and crumbles by the end of the film, but she starts at the height of her glory. There's this whole room full of people, and you can see Cate Blanchett just like knowing that Lydia Tár is indulging in this too. The air of pretension and snobbery. She is loving every bit of it. And so how long that opening sequence, I think, shocks me every time for that interview stage sequence. The other thing that I thought was fascinating in retrospect is how we never see the relationship that she had with Olga really fully come to fruition. And I really appreciate that from the film, because I think in the hands of another screenwriter or creative team, they would have shown all of that and then the downfall happens. But I think the choice to not lean into the spectacle of that relationship and then the relationship being like ripped apart, I think is essential, because the film's like, that's not what's most important. Like, Olga's played her role in the story, but Tár is who we're captivated by. And so I just love the lack of like melodrama. I mean, there's everything about that is dramatic that you would want to put on a big screen and have people lean into the emotion of it. But the film chooses not to indulge in that. And I really appreciate that as well.
Yeah, such a great insight. That offsetting sort of like very long interview. And like, who was your second favorite performance? I almost jokingly thought about saying like, real life journalist Adam Gopnik. like New Yorkering harder than anyone has ever New Yorkered in their life for that interview, and just really selling it. He really brought me right into it. I got a kick out of that. But yeah, I love all of what you had to say. I think those framing devices of the text messages were fascinating, and like we could debate who's behind those messages. I think there are some guesses that are better than others, but like it's for me, it's seems to be Francesca. And when we get to that abandoned apartment, if that is in fact real, it maybe this was just her angry and alone, but I feel like she was there plotting with someone. Like they were having a fuck Lydia Tár party. Here's how we are going to take this monster down. And it's something I kind of wish we got to see, but again, the stuff they left out of this movie is so important. That Slate article by Adam Coyce, I didn't have a brilliant thing to say about the music, but he actually did break it down a little bit in conjunction with Mahler's number 5. He's throwing out, all these terms. We've got moderato, allegro, but the short version is that the pace of the song increases, right? As like this action is increasing. Now he ended his analysis with the moment where she finally just like smacks Callen and like knocks him down off the podium, which is like the second most satisfying like physical assault on television I've seen in a while. The best one was Chikai Bardo from Severance, when Gemma finally hits her abuser with a chair, and it's like, oh, thank God. But yeah, you do get like this increasing pace, but even just like the pace of the narrative with her next chapter being like so harried, and we are hopping countries. We end up at I believe it's the Philippines that we end up in ultimately. But yeah, so an incredibly fun movie and so engaging.
Well said. Well, we've talked a lot tonight so far about how much this film really does leave unsaid and how much it invites you to bring your own experiences and perspectives to the film. So I'm curious, for our panel, what did you bring to this film, either the first time or the second time around? Do you think that your perspective impacted the viewing experience? What's this film saying to you? Jen, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, I had such a different experience the first watch and the second watch. I think the first watch, I was really focused on who is Lydia Tár. I mean, unpacking and kind of the enigma that she is. So that's where I was fixated on, I think, the first time watching. This most recent watch, I was really struck by how much there is a system and a set of power dynamics that are at play here that everyone is playing into and having to figure out how to survive in. And so really focusing a lot more and noticing Sharon and how Sharon had made this trade-off to be in this like very transactional relationship that seems to be really twisted, but it helped her further her career. So she's choosing to deal with a lot of Lydia Tár's stuff because it's helpful for her. Olga is another great example of this, but I also felt more deeply this time the emotions of like that first chair cellist who's probably like worked so hard, dedicated her life to this, and yet because of the corruption in the system, she's just not going to get this opportunity, and how like unfair the system is in how like these people that are in power are able to manipulate for their own advantage. And so I think that was really striking to me this time, is like seeing these power plays happen across all of these different dynamics and how Lydia Tár has perpetuated the corruption in the system and used it to her gain.
Yeah, she's certainly like a product of it, right? But in that, she perpetuates it. I think sometimes I fear whether or not I would recognize the choice when it comes to me to disrupt something or to perpetuate it. Not easy. She's not to be judged, that's for sure. I don't think the film wants us to. Sarah, what about you?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit earlier, but I really love like the vibes of this movie. I love like their apartment that is so like clean and stark and modern, and I love that kind of design. I love, like being in these like concert halls. I love all those moments when it's just empty and you see just, how vast this space is and all of the chairs. And there's something so magical about those spaces. There's something so magical about music. And so I think there's so much beauty in this film that I'm just really taken by. Also, like, aesthetically, this is just up my alley. I love neutrals. I don't know why. So like, just everything about this movie just kind of like is in line with my vibe and things that I love. Obviously not manipulation and abuse and gross power dynamics, but like superficially all of those other like aspects, the visuals and the way that this is filmed, the way that certain things are framed. So I just aesthetically, I just want to be kind of like lost in this world. And so it's fun to go back into that. Even the long New Yorker interview that you guys were talking about, I love that. I know this about myself. I can be hella pretentious. I know that about me. It's obnoxious, and I try not to be that person. But man, when I'm watching that scene, I'm like, yes, I am fascinated. I am a member of that audience, and I am eating up every word that Lydia is saying. And so I love so much of how this is constructed and this world that this film creates that I want to live in. And then you see the gross sides of it and the abuses of power and everything, and you see all of those negative aspects. So it's just so cool the way that this film is able to create such beauty and such like warmth in the beginning. And then it just kind of like falls away as you see like the gross, rotten center and that journey that you go on. I'm sucked in every time. I'm a sucker for so much that happens in this movie. So I love the journey that this makes me go on, just partially because of who I am as a person.
Yeah. I'm like with you 1,000% on sort of indulging in some of the pretension that's in this film. I'll speak a little bit more about that. But first, Randy, what about you?
Yeah, so I think probably the main thing I brought to this was just, first of all, a happiness that I missed the movie the first time, because it sounds like the discourse really got screwed up by this whole cancel culture debate. Like, is this a movie about cancel culture? That's such a limited window to look at the message of this movie through.
Very reductive.
I felt really happy to be able to look at it with like fresh eyes and not like stuck in the mire of that whole conversation. But yeah, I think really just this kind of came up in our What Other Culture Were We Thinking About, but just this idea of powerful people who feel bulletproof, who build up this armor around themselves, and they can craft these fantasies not just for everyone else but for themselves, something that was a really tough watch for me a few years ago, but I found it deeply fascinating, even though it was tough to hear, was W. Kamau Bell did a whole documentary on the whole Bill Cosby situation and his history of abuse. And without getting into the nitty-gritty ugliness of what he uncovered there, one thing I understood was like, wow, I got a sense of like what the fantasy explanation was that like Bill Cosby had crafted in his head, that he could convince himself while doing monstrous things that he could genuinely look himself in the mirror and believe he was not. And I saw some of that from Lydia Tár, like that she can't see what everyone else can see so clearly. And to see that deconstructed a bit was interesting. But I also brought to this movie wanting to be challenged and wanting to find some nuance. I'm not here looking to forgive Lydia for the pain that she's caused, but like when I watch those closing moments, like especially my second time through, I took her tears very seriously. I saw them like very genuine in that moment. And that quote about music and how it can explain these big feelings that you can't put to words, like, I'm kind of surprised I didn't happen to cry. I think like I just wasn't in the right space, but if you played that speech for me at the right moment, it would be waterworks. If you're going through something and someone played that clip for you, like it just would. Even though I wasn't feeling big feelings in the moment, I almost went there. So yeah, seeing power collapse under its own sort of lies was something that brought me into it. And yeah, just understanding the politics, seeing that it's in every industry. Like they did sneak in a couple little tidbits about how the politics of the symphony work, but like they didn't sit you down for a boring explanation. And just those shots of everyone in the orchestra told you exactly how fucked up it was, what Lydia was doing to Gosha, the first cellist. Like you just understood the politics so smoothly. So yeah, I brought in some stuff that made it really work for me.
Yeah. I think for me, first and foremost, I have like a chip on my shoulder when it comes to authority. And
Mhm.
I have, despite like loving to indulge in sort of intellectual pretension, I have a really big chip on my shoulder when it comes to social pretension, sort of like snobbery
Mhm.
and the exclusivity that comes with certain like gated communities in our world. And so, despite being sort of drawn in by the music of it all and the world of classical music, I was immediately pretty suspicious of Tar herself, really captivated by her. But there are these moments where you see her manipulating people, and that's where I was like, sure, she doesn't maybe know what she's doing so tangibly, so intentionally, like I'm going to manipulate this person. But you'll notice when she needs something, she never just says it. She's never just authentic. When she's going to let Sebastian down, right? When she's going to rotate Sebastian out, she goes to him and she first offers him, she tries to incept the idea in his mind that he's
Yeah.
ready to move on, right? And same thing with Gosha, the first position cellist there. She's like, what do you think? I mean, don't you think we should have auditions, right? She tries to invite this as if it's a collaborative process, a democratic process.
Mhm.
But the truth is the same thing that's true for a Louis C.K. or a Bill Cosby. In that moment, the thing you think you're asking in this power dynamic, you're dictating the outcome
Yeah.
simply with the question, right? And everybody involved knows it. Because I have that chip on my shoulder when it comes to sort of snobbery and
Mhm.
authority, I was watching her. I'm like, I don't trust you. Nobody should trust you. And it definitely impacted my overall watching of the film. But there was this other side of me that was so impressed with this character. I was so moved by her ability to speak German so beautifully, to not just to speak German, but there were ways in which she moved back and forth between the German and the English because an idea was better expressed in one language or the other, which shows
Mhm.
such a mastery for the language. And that was so intriguing to see. I love music. I can't play music very well myself, but I like to try. I have a bunch of instruments around my house that I fiddle with. And like inside of me is this like aspiring person who just wishes they like grasped music as instinctively as you see the characters in this film sort of relating to music. And so I found myself like Googling things. I wanted to know what Freebo meant as she was having this
Yep, yep.
conversation. All these little terms and these references to musicians or these things that Tar would say. I'm like, that's a quote. You're not just a person who speaks that way. You're a person who's
Yep.
speaking from the many things you've read and consumed in your life, and you're regurgitating wisdom as a quote. And so I was like voraciously writing things down and Googling them. So all of that intrigue also like kind of had me wrapped around her finger a bit in the same way
Yeah.
that I think other people in her world, in this character's world, feel.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know exactly what time it is
Mm,
when you and I will arrive at our destination together. It's in that whole thing with Sebastian. But yeah, but the politics are so fascinating, right? Because it's like it's going back to Madison. Shout out to you again. Her review starts, "I support women's wrongs."
mm,
Yeah, like she's being awful to Sebastian, but like we get enough context clues that like he played the game as well.
right.
And he landed himself in this nice cushy position, and he gets to retire in comfort, and he never had to face any comeuppance for anything he did to get what he got.
Yeah. It is interesting how much of what you see Tar exhibiting is familiar to us in a very masculine way, right? In our world, like these are like patriarchal behaviors, right? And I think some of the way she moves, when I was saying earlier, I'm not certain that she knows for sure so tangibly that what she's doing. It's almost as if like she's just bought into the way that her world works. She came up in this world. This is the power dynamic. There are people who get to move on. There's you pay your dues, and there's a whole structure to this. There's a dance that we do, and she's just sort of bought into that, and so she's perpetuating it, but from a very particularly male seat in that world, right? I think the film, similar to you all, you joked about this in your initial coverage, but when I read the synopsis for this film, I had to Google whether or not it was based on a true story. Like the intentionality of telling us this is the first woman to ever lead this kind of a production in Berlin, right? All felt very familiar. And then she was so well realized that she felt very real. But her clothing throughout, like she's introduced herself as Petra's father,
Mhm.
right? She's constantly draped in a sartorial look, but she has adopted so many of what I assume she's observed from the successful men in her world, whether she realizes
Yeah.
that or not. I think she's assimilated a lot of that, and you see it in her character. None of the positive things. I'm referring to all of the really ugly things about her character.
But I love your point, Kris, about like you being like wrapped around her finger because you feel everybody else in the film is also kind of in awe of her. And like, yes, she's doing terrible things, but you can kind of dismiss it because she's a genius and all of this. And so I think that that is the brilliance of when Olga comes into the picture, because for, half or more of the movie, we've mostly seen people that are reverential to Tár and are willing to go along or, defer to her. And then you see Olga, who she doesn't do that. She's not playing this game. And it's so jarring for Lydia herself, but it's also jarring for us as the audience because we haven't seen this yet. And even when people have pushed back against Lydia, it's this very like honoring way of doing it and kind of, almost needing to like skirt around it to disagree with her. But Olga comes out and is just such a different thing that we haven't seen before. And so I think it's brilliant the way that the film strings us along and we are in awe of her. And then Olga comes in and we go, oh, there's a different way to respond to this person that we haven't thought of yet. Oh, this is interesting. Let's see what happens.
Olga even outright rejects her at the offer for dinner and then is seen going out later. That hurts Tár. Very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, like in that moment of the awkward politics and everyone looks so uncomfortable, Olga does not. We talked about her eating habits earlier. She looks hungry. Like she sees the opportunity taking shape. She sees what's happening here. Yeah.
Playing the game her own way. Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Let's see. All right. Well, we've gone pretty deep into this film. We've talked about a lot of our favorite moments. But before we move on to our extra credit section, I've got to ask everyone, is there another scene, quote, shot, something we didn't get a chance to celebrate yet that just really sticks with you? It's just so we don't walk away feeling like we only covered 5%. Like if Randy had just talked a little bit less about Monster Hunter, we could have made it. Let's see. Kris, I'm going to go to you first.
Oh, wow. I have several quotes written down. I'll try not to read all of them. But I guess I'll talk about a scene by way of naming a quote, because that classroom scene was one of those moments where I was so taken by the intellectual nature of this film. And I wanted to be in that classroom, much like you wanted to be in that New Yorker audience, right? And I'm watching her, I'm like, wow, if I was exposed to this professor, I would be in that room just like edge of my seat, right? Even when things are getting kind of weird. And I think there's a few different ways to read that scene. And maybe depending on, Randy, referring back to the previous question, what you bring to the film, you might feel one way or another about the way that scene plays out with this student and this conversation around Bach. I know that I was captivated and I was thinking, this is a brilliant professor. This is like a brilliant human being who understands themselves and their world so well, they can just kind of do this off the cuff, right? You didn't imagine she prepared for this lesson. She's just doing it from off the cuff. But that's like one long continuous shot.
Yeah.
She's just like living in the room. It's another moment where that performance lives so large. She is an absolute force in that scene. But there's one quote, one moment that she had me in her perspective. And I don't think she was trying to take down poor Max as hard as he felt taken down. But she was authentically reacting to him and engaging with his ideas. And she says, the narcissism of small differences leads to the most boring conformity. And I was like, ooh, that's an indictment of our whole generation in a lot of ways. Like I need to sit and wrestle with that quote in a pretty significant way. Take a long walk, have a cup of tea and think about that quote. The narcissism of small differences leads to the most boring conformity. And she's in the midst of kind of tearing down his like very vague issue with Bach, right? It's like this very social media driven, sort of superficial, at least that's the way she's presenting it. And I was like, damn, that's a harsh truth. You're right. We think we're so unique and different, which just leads us all to behave the exact same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, how about for you? What's something that you can't let go of that you wish we had talked about up to this point?
Yeah, so I also love that scene. That was
Mm-hmm.
definitely one of my options, and I love the way that and you referenced it, Chris, but it's one continuous shot, and I love that use of that filmmaking style for that because you feel like you are in the room, and it makes the room feel so dynamic too because as she is moving around the room, then the camera is also moving around the room. So you're seeing different parts of it, and that scene is just so electric. I think
Yeah.
obviously her dialogue, Cate Blanchett's performance, all of that is great. But I think so much of the choreography of how she is moving and how the camera is moving makes that feel so electric, so engaging. And then the other little thing that I wanted to just shout out is that moment after her neighbor dies and then
Mm-hmm.
the woman comes and is like, "Hey, we want to sell this apartment. So when do you play? Because we don't want you playing when we're showing the apartment." And then Tar gets out her accordion and starts playing and singing and started to
No,
lose it a little
no,
bit.
we don't want that.
Like
So
her
funny.
accordion.
Absolutely
The fact
amazing.
that she has an accordion at home.
It's so good.
Mhm.
But what I really loved about it this time is that the way that the shot is framed, everything is a little crooked. And so it feels like, this film has been like so symmetrical, so intentional the way that everything is framed. And then we have this moment where she is starting to lose it a little bit and like the facade has cracked. And now the film itself is this frame is crooked as she is just completely unhinged. So I love all throughout the film there are these interesting framing decisions that I think
Mhm.
also help us get a little bit more insight into what Tar is thinking and feeling. And that was just one example that I really noticed this watch.
Mm.
You sure sound like you went to film school to me. I love that analysis of that
Yeah.
shot. That's great stuff.
Well done.
I did not. I just
No,
noticed
I
weird
know.
things. I don't know why.
No, that was a great observation. Jen, how about for you? What's something you want to shout out?
Yeah. One of the things that I think makes this film like nuanced and it's playing in nuance is that it's towards the third act of the film, we obviously know that this character is incredibly corrupt and twisted and awful human being in a lot of ways. And then she receives this video, which is an edit of that
Mm.
classroom sequence of the lecture on social media. And it takes so much of what she's saying out of context. It's very clearly
Mhm.
these like fast cuts and whatnot. And I think that just adds so much interesting complication to a relationship with Lydia Tár in this film because we see that she is also a product of this like social media landscape that is taking her words and manipulating them in the wrong ways. And so she's being indicted for things that were not necessarily said by her and maybe soon to be indicted for things that she's actually doing. But I think it's such like interesting and relevant commentary on our time
Yeah.
now where that is so prevalent and in general I think this film is captivated by like the public discourse and the like freedom of media to like
Mhm.
do and say and twist your words. So that hit great in 2022 and it oddly is hitting even more so now in 2025 and so the
Mhm.
timelessness of that whole thematic bit I think is like a really big part of this film that I wanted to make sure we got to shout out because there's a lot of it. Even it's starting the film with the live stream of her and
Mhm.
framing the entire film like that around image making and how that gets really complicated in the day and age that we live in, I think is a big part of this
Mm.
film's kind of like
Mhm.
fixations.
Love that.
Yeah, I think for me, I had one little one I wanted to shout out, which is just before she goes to see like her new agents and they send her off to this gig to do the video game composition performance. She's like parking her car and there's this shot of this giant pile driver in the background just banging the beat into the ground. It's like this massive metronome. And I even thought of her story in the interview about the like sort of the early conductor pounding the beat into the floor, but he stabs himself in the foot and gives himself gangrene. It was really giving me that. But I really wanted to dig into the accordion sequence too. Now, love to talk about Gatsby, and as Kris knows, I also love to talk about Weird Al Yankovic, a famous accordion player. And I've heard him tell this story a few different times that he got into the accordion because there was a door-to-door salesman selling music lessons to his parents. And I think the options were like the accordion and the guitar. And like the accordion was like a big deal in like the 50s, 60s, 70s. And it was something like I picture this childhood home we saw. I could almost imagine that same sort of door-to-door salesman person introducing this world that becomes this obsession for Lydia, and to know that that's the name of the foundation. It's going back to her roots. There's that accordion in her room next to all of her awards and everything. And I mean, the shot that you broke down, Sarah, it's the most iconic thing in the movie for me. Like that's going to be my image of Tar. Just totally losing it. Apartment for sale on the accordion, like great stuff. But I read a little Wikipedia description of an accordion that I thought made me love the scene even more. And that is, the essential characteristic of the accordion is to combine in one instrument a melody section on the right-hand keyboard with an accompaniment functionality on the left hand. So all I could think of was her discussion of like, here's what my right hand is doing, here's what my left hand is doing. It's almost like having control of a mini orchestra. Like you are multiple parts in one. And to see that she started there, it hit me harder and was even more interesting than I thought, that it could maybe inform me about where she came from and also why she became a conductor. So yeah, really incredible stuff.
Great reading. Love that. Well, I think we've probably done it now. We definitely have not only done 5%, that's for sure. But one last call. Any bits of movie magic, anything you all want to shout out before we move on?
Just one more little thing that I was fixated on this time too is when she after she drops Olga off and Olga leaves the little like stuffed bear and Lydia's like walking around trying to give her the bear back. There's this shot where she discovers the door that then goes downstairs and it's dark and you see there's this doorway and you can see her car through that and it's like a white car. And that contrast between the light and the dark, and she's going downstairs into the darkness to try and find Olga. So I love the way that like means so much and is such a turning point in the film too, because then it's after that she falls and everything starts to like spiral out of control. So I thought that was such a smart and intentional way to like frame that shot that's also full of symbolism and meaning. So I don't know, I was really fixated on that this time too.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I love that shot as well. And I actually had something else written down about it. It's the one where you can see the car and the staircase, yes?
Yep.
Like she's making that decision, but the framing of it really reminded me of that moment where she is sneaking Sharon's pills. It's a really similar shot where you can see down the hallway and you can see into the bathroom. And she's going through her little subterfuge there. So yeah, those echoes that like she's like making these choices that are a descent and that gets repeated for us.
Love that.
I had one quick little detail that was, I thought, cool.
Yeah.
This is, so leading up for most of the first act, she's wearing primarily like very like masculine, cool tones, lots of whites, lots of grays, lots of browns. And after she has some of her first few interactions with Olga, she wears a peach blouse to that first, that next rehearsal afterwards. And it's this like very like pastel peach blouse. I'm like, I've never seen color on this woman ever at any point in this movie. And so that feels like such a shift in like reflecting kind of this emotional like burgeoning that she's feeling as she's catching feelings for Olga. So visually I thought that was cool. And I've never seen this woman wear any color ever. So I was like, oh my gosh, whoa. She's feeling something different now, you know? Introducing some happy colors into her wardrobe.
I'm so grateful we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
I am so grateful to have this conversation. I have to go back and rewatch this movie. I was going to anyways, but honestly, it'll be so much richer for having had this chat with you all. I understand why you like to just like talk movies. The more you talk about it, the more you uncover, right? Beautiful. I had one last little thing myself. One other quote. It's when Lydia's having the conversation with her mentor, and she kind of refers to something, a piece of music that she'd composed, and how it's a bit pastiche. And he says it's all pastiche. We all share the same musical grammar. And it leads to this interesting conversation where she wants to believe that there is uniqueness to it. He's like, everybody's aping off of everybody. Look at Beethoven. Look at these structures in his music and his contemporaries. And she says, like, I find that terrifying. He is in this place of like growth and wisdom. He's in a totally different, like the opposite end of the spectrum of his career from where she is. And I feel like it was this moment for us to see how much she's still striving. She seems fully realized, right? She seems like she's at the height of this power, but she's still just as enslaved to this whole system as everybody else around her, right? And he's this rare glimpse of somebody who's like a bit removed from it. He's graduated from it. And he has this real wisdom and peace that comes with the ultimate perspective. And I appreciated that quote for that reason.
Beautiful. I've just got to shout out the crocodiles that escaped from a Marlon Brando movie.
Yes.
Which is Apocalypse Now. It's a funny detail. It leads to that shot of her, behind the waterfall, looking very much like a predator, looking out, doing whatever she's doing, reckoning with herself. But actually, the reason I find this so interesting is this notion that this Hollywood film production is going to come into the Philippines. They're going to do their thing. They're going to get their shot. They're going to get out. They're going to be irresponsible. They're going to leave this predatory species behind, create danger, right? It's such a reflection of her like sort of elitist attitude and how little she cared about who she hurt along the way. So that was actually why I loved that detail so much. And also the idea that they survived, and now she's finding a way to survive. Is she a predator? Is she a plucky survivor that we hope can find a second chapter? I don't know.
Okay.
I think we did it. I think we did it. I think that
did it.
Probably concludes the main portion, the main coursework for this classroom session. But we've got to do extra credit. You don't get away from Professor Elaine's course without a little bit of extra credit. Randy, you want to take us in?
Yeah, sure. So this first question is called Hindsight is 2020. If you could make one small edit to a property, what would it be and why? This is not something we are doing with pretension. We are not presupposing that we know better than the creatives behind a project. We're just trying to have fun with it. And quite frankly, I think this is the hardest property that I've ever asked us to do this for, because I had to dig pretty deep to find something. And I suspect I was not alone in that. But I'm going to let our guests tackle this one first. Jen, what'd you come up with?
This might be a cop-out, but I'm choosing
That's
it anyway.
okay.
And my edit to this film is I would love more lunch combos, some more lunching with Lydia Tár, just like waxing poetic with other people that are also waxing poetic. I thought all of those lunch combos were so fun. The dialogue is so complex and rich in those scenes. And I want to hear what else they chat about over like their French, white tablecloth lunches. So more lunch combo. This is my answer.
That's a perfect answer. Sarah, what did you come up with?
So mine is just a little nit that is also related to lunch convos. But when Lydia and Andrus are talking, the stuff on the table shifts without anybody moving. So like there's like knives that move a little bit, and I think it's like the amount of food changes. So there's just a little like continuity thing in that scene. So I would just clean that up just a little tiny bit. So that's my like one little nit about this film.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
Did you catch that in the second watch or the first watch?
In the second one.
watch. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I wouldn't
Kris?
put it past Sarah to catch it.
Yeah, I
notice the same
fixate
thing.
on weird things, so I notice things. I
Yeah.
can't explain it,
Very
so it just happens.
No. Continuity errors are one of my favorite things to
Mhm.
pause and make my family go back.
I do the same thing. Jen has witnessed
Mhm.
me do that a couple of times.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I am
do
the
it.
way that I am, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. And maybe it's because I've been on enough sets now and stuff. Like, you know how it's supposed to go and the kind of whose job that was. Like, oh, someone wasn't doing what they were supposed to do.
Um, Shout out to the great Robert Redford. But in that 1974 Great Gatsby movie, there's a sequence where they buy a puppy. And then at the end of the sequence, they like cut to the puppy and it's like a full grown dog all of a sudden. It's like the weirdest thing in the world. I'm
That's
sorry.
amazing. That's
But we
amazing.
love you, Robert Redford. Kris, I cut you off.
Oh, I don't really have anything to say for this. I also, like you, Randy, found this to be one of the more difficult moments to answer this question. Not because I think it's a like perfect or unassailable or anything. I'm sure if I watched it a second time or a third time, I could maybe pick some nits lighting wise or something. But upon a first watch, from just a pure story perspective, like there's things I'm more curious about. Like, shocked to find out at the end that she has a family that's still alive. Like Lydia Tár, with a little accent over the A, feels like a person who just like kind of came fully realized into the world. Like doesn't have much of a past. It's just like, yeah, really. So to find out that she has like a mom and a brother, that was her brother, I assume, who calls her Linda. So like maybe I'm a little bit more curious about that, and I wish there may have been instances before the last 10 minutes of the film where I learned more about her, but it's hard to say that I would make that change because I think that the filmmaker made the film they were trying to make. Randy, we talked about this before with Christopher Nolan, right? Like when you're watching a piece of art like this, it's hard to say whether or not like you would change anything because you're not the person who made it. You don't know why they made it.
Right.
You don't know what informed these choices, what they were trying to say ultimately, what they were trying not to say intentionally. And so I watched this movie and it's so unique and it's so confusing sometimes. It all feels very intentional. I can't help but believe that Todd Field made exactly the movie that he sought to make and he wouldn't change a shot.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Kris. And like the reason this is so tough is the omissions are good choices here. You know, like the movie would be worse if we ever really spent time with Krista. Like she's got to be this idea, right? Like, so I don't want a scene with Krista. It's the same with a lot of what they left out. You know, this is a great movie with a lot of omissions. The other movie I saw recently that I thought did a great job not over explaining itself was K-pop Demon Hunters. You know, but when you have some omission, things go really well for you. I did come up with one little detail that I think I would benefit from hearing, and it's the tiniest thing. It's during the Monster Hunter World performance. She stands up. She's not at any moment scoffed at this job. She seems to be taking it fully seriously with full respect for the composer who's not going to show up at the performance. But, you know, they come out and they hand her the headset. She's got the headset on, and conducting has been such an insular experience for her. If I could just hear like one little instruction she's getting over those headphones, I want to know what the information is. I want to know if she's allowed any sort of collaborative element into her art, or if this is something else, if it's tied to the video cues. Again, this was a tough one because the fact that I don't know what's in that headset is really interesting. I don't think this was like an error on the part of the filmmaker. But Jen, you said you had a cop-out answer, but when you had a great answer. Let me give you a real cop-out answer. A cop-out answer would be, I wish she had hit Elliot Kaplan 3 or 4 more times. That was going to be my cop-out answer during that sequence. So there you go.
Brilliant. Perfect.
All right, Kris, bring us into our favorite question, the staple of Media Lit, the thing that sustains us.
Fun.
This is honestly the reason I said yes to being your co-host was so I could play this game week. For our guests, in case you don't know, Randy and I are populating a fictional prop cave.
Yes.
I think we both, Randy, I'm not sure if yours has evolved to the the point of mind palace, but mine has. I can go into my brain. I can walk
easily.
through the prop cave and visit my various elements inside of it. So
yeah, I can see the Zebo, the clown door, exactly where it is when I walk into my art gallery. Yep.
it's a very dimensional space.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So at the end of every conversation, we hope to pick one prop or souvenir from the property that we would want to take home with us. So for us, it's going into our prop cave. You all can display them however you see fit in your worlds. But I'm curious to hear from you both. And Sarah, we'll go to you first. What is one proper souvenir that you would take home from Tar?
So I mentioned I was in band as a kid. I played flute when I was younger. And so I played that elementary school all the way up into college. And part of that, I really wanted, in my heart of hearts, I wanted to play the bass flute. There was no need for a bass flute anywhere in any of the school bands that I was ever a part of. So I never got to play the bass flute. In that music scene in Juilliard, there is a guy playing a bass flute. And I was watching this movie alone. It was just me and the dogs. And I'm pretty sure I yelled out, bass flute. Like, I got so excited seeing somebody playing that. So that is my prop that I would take. And I mean, I haven't played flute in like over a decade, but if I got a bass flute, you better believe I would be playing that thing all the time. So that is my choice.
That really warms my heart. That is tremendous. Andre 3000 is a honorary podling, and I think that he would appreciate your answer.
I love that.
Jen,
I learned
what
a
about
new
you?
Sarah fixation today. I need to add that to my list of
bass flute.
Wait, hold on. If
Credits
Media
to you.
Lit, if Media Lit is allowing two people who have spent 7 years potting together to uncover new layers, we have certainly done our job here tonight. I'm thrilled. So Jen, what's your prop?
My prop that does not fit in the cave is her Berlin apartment. I would like to own that. That is beautiful.
Yes.
Natural light galore. That's beautiful. But if it has to fit into the prop cave, I would pick a Lydia Tár blazer because those things are fire. More likely, I would pick like her tailor so then she can custom make a tailor for me because I will not fit in a Lydia Tár blazer.
Jen is good at this game.
She is, yeah. And there's first of all, to validate the fashion of it all, there's so much drape to all of her clothing. I could never look that cool. I'm looking at the silhouette she's wearing. There's like just a certain flow to every piece, even while it's still sartorial and really sharp. So great pick. And I'm excited to reveal to you, Jen, that Randy and I allow ourselves just once a year to select a whole space from a film to introduce to the prop cave, which I said, I mean, you've seen the Bat Cave, right? It's a very large and ever evolving. So you just like, you got to kind of bore out a new corner of the cave and you can build out your Berlin apartment. And there you can hang your blazer. So we're happy to give you the apartment, which of course will come with some wardrobe. Yeah.
Wonderful one. Thank you. Thank you.
Great pick. Great pick. Randy, what do you have in mind?
Yeah, like sometimes I have a really cute and elaborate answer, but I'm going to keep it simple. I already told you how much that accordion sequence means to me, so I want that accordion. But Kris, do you know where it's going to hang out based on the conversation we were just having? I'm going to put it right inside of Harlan Thrombey's study, which is part of my prop cave. So it's going to hang out in that room with me.
Okay, tremendous, great pick. It was also going to be my pick. As you know, I'm a collector of instruments. No. I'm grateful that you went accordion because my prop cave needs a grand. And so we're going to bring her piano from the Berlin apartments into the home. I do hope that with it, I can ask, the sheet music comes along, right? She has this little, in fact, there's a shot from inside the shelf of scrolls at one point. Like you see from inside this triangular shelf of scrolls. Just one of those scrolls with the piano would be lovely for me. And it has to be a scroll. I love how she has to kind of unfurl it in order to play. I don't play piano. I could start to learn to play piano if I had her piano in my prop cave. So yes, please.
Yeah. Can channel the spirit of Lydia Tár as you play that, learn piano with her piano,
Absolutely.
Yes.
Although I don't know if you want to channel that spirit, perhaps maybe just
just the musical spirit is fine.
Just the musical spirit, yes.
Chant these fingers.
Yes.
I think that was the classiest edition of the prop cave yet. So that was fantastic.
Mm.
All right. We love to do a deep dive. We love to talk stories for a very long time. We're not always the most disciplined podcasters, but man, do we ever get in touch with our souls and our spirits. So I've got to thank Jen and Sarah for being so giving of their time, for showing up to the podcast tonight, going so deep on this podcast, and helping me appreciate this movie even more than I did after 2 watches. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for signing us this homework.
Yes.
I would not have found this film without you both. So thank you really for assigning it. I'm grateful to have watched it and grateful to have podded with you. I hope this is the beginning of a wonderful podding friendship. Welcome to the family.
Love it. I love it. Was that a Casablanca? Was your channeling Casablanca reference? If so,
Yeah.
I love it.
Nice.
Well done. Okay, good.
Great cat.
Our kind of person.
You're a classy man, Kris Ingersoll.
Well, we've done it, folks. That is your Media Lit on Tar. Thank you again to the Movies and Us pod for joining us. If you enjoyed this conversation, you want to hear more from Media Lit, you can find us on every single platform that is willing to serve you a podcast. If you can get a podcast there, we're there. Search media/lit and you'll find us. We're even on YouTube now. We've introduced some video elements, not all the time, but some of the time. So find us on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, follow the pod. If you think that this is a good conversation, you think other people should hear it, you've got to like and subscribe. It's how everyone else is going to find the pod amongst all those amazing pods that are out there in the world. And then we're on all the socials. If you want to engage with us, we'd love to chat with our podlings. We're on Instagram and Blue Sky and Facebook. We're even on the other one still. So look for us there. Search Media Lit Pod or just media/lit, and you're going to find us.
Kris, thank you for shamelessly plugging our show. You always do a fantastic job with that. But I'm going to invite you to shamelessly plug yourself. Is there anywhere you would like folks to find you or any of your other work out there in the world?
Yes, sir. Thank you for asking. Aside from Media Lit, I'm also the co-host of the Batman by the Numbers podcast with my dear friend Dan Cohen for the popbreak.com. That's a once a month endeavor where we seek to just like go as deep as we can on all things Dark Knight. This year, though, 2025 has been a big year for Superman. So we're in our world's finest era.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking Superman month over month. We're going to take a little break from Big Blue Boy Scout coming up soon. We're going to do a little visit into the DC TV world. Peacemaker's on right now. We had Creature Commandos come before. We've got Lanterns to look forward to. So if you want to talk about all of those things, check out Batman by the Numbers on the Pop Break podcast feed. I'm also an actor and a voice actor. I'm a father and a husband. You can find me doing those things on Instagram and Blue Sky at Kris_Ingersoll. That's Kris spelled like Kringle.
And I'm your host, Randy Elaine. You can stay right on the popbreak.com and you can find my other podcast, Pod of Doom, a Black Sabbath appreciation podcast. Although by the time you are hearing this, we will be transitioning to the next phase of that podcast. We've spent about a year digging into the discography of Black Sabbath, myself and the Mancini brothers. And in the very near future, we will be launching our next venture. That's right. They are letting me run a podcast about my favorite musician, Beck Hansen. Be on the lookout for that. We'll have lots more details and teases for you as that approaches. And of course, look for my entertainment writing over there. Check out my Severance Season 2 coverage. Check out my interview with Mark Watcher, Eric J. Carlson. Check out our Media Lit episode with him as well, where we went deep and got some behind the scenes on Jessica Lee Gagne and the crew. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and we'll see you next time.